Welcome to this WSAV News 3 on your side special presentation. Now, WSAV's Black History Journey.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Gusby. At WSAV, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most. This morning, as we continue to celebrate Black history, we take a look at the significant roles of ordinary people doing the extraordinary in shaping our community, our country, and our world. We begin by taking you into a unique exhibit in Yorktown, Virginia, honoring forgotten soldiers who fought in the American Revolution. Tamara Scott reports.
When we think about the Revolutionary War, many people think about our victory against the British Army and the beginning of our country as we know today. But there are some faces who don't always get remembered. The faces of the African Americans who also fought for their lives and for their freedom. Well, here at the Forgotten Soldier exhibit, curators are hoping that you remember the part they played in our future and you shift your gaze.
We're trying to tell stories that have been forgotten since the American Revolution and tell a more holistic, more complete story.
And that starts here at the Forgotten Soldier exhibit at the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown, with who's believed to be the very first martyr, Crispus Attucks.
He was a mulatto, which means he was a man of mixed race, mixed heritage. He is the one of those men who were killed the evening of the Boston Massacre.
Looking at Paul Revere's engraving of that massacre, you see Attucks, who not only made the ultimate sacrifice for our country, but also set the tone for the African American sacrifice.
Something like 50% of Virginia itself was enslaved. And so that's a very large part of the population that doesn't always have an avenue out of that institution.
Curator Kate Egner-Gruber says this is where things get complicated.
So the American Revolution then offers up this moment of choice. And so that's what we're getting at as we move through the gallery here, is that African Americans, both free and enslaved, during the years of the Revolution have choices to make. Sometimes those choices are made for them.
To stay enslaved and fight with the Patriots, or leave and fight for the British Loyalist. One man highlighted here, the last colonial governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, sets an example of the options for blacks in this time. He offered slaves the chance to serve in exchange for their freedom. That promise is alluring.
And we know that many, many, many men, women, and children, regardless of their intention to join the British Army, do show up to take advantage of Dunmore's proclamation, and that happens right here in Virginia.
But records show those who made the move in hopes of freedom were challenged when the war ended.
What happens to those thousands of African American men, women, and children who take the British up on their offers of freedom? We can follow some of those stories through the survival of these two books.
The Book of Negroes and The Inspection Roll of Negroes. This is the first time these two have been in the same room since the 18th century. This is where we meet Mary Perth, owned by a man in Norfolk, Virginia. Perth and her family, like thousands of others, have many unanswered questions.
Article 7 stipulates that because the British lost, they have to leave North America. They have to leave, but when they do leave, they cannot carry off any property owned by Americans. Article 7 specifically says, including Negroes.
But one man, known only as Mulatto Billy, changes everything. He joined the British Army in hopes of freedom, but then is arrested later for treason.
And he is actually found guilty and sentenced to hang for being a traitor. It's actually Thomas Jefferson who intervenes here. And he says that Billy, because he's enslaved, he's not free, therefore he's not a citizen, and he has no political allegiance to anyone.
Now this is important though, because although Billy might have been made an example here,
yes,
it doesn't mean that every African American after him got the same treatment.
From the forgotten to heroes whose stories are slowly fading away. A Tampa Bay man may be one of the last living Buffalo soldiers, but at nearly 100 years old, he has vivid memories of his military service. Here's Rod Carter with more.
Retired Army Corporal Steve Lewis is living history.
I was in 12th grade when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
A date which will live in infamy.
The 97-year-old Manatee County veteran vividly remembers the day that changed America forever.
It was on Sunday, and I didn't. So it says Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor, and we didn't have during that time we didn't have no TVs. We had a radio.
Although after Pearl Harbor, Lewis enrolled at Florida A&M College in Tallahassee, now FAMU, a country at war meant studies took a back seat.
Every man in college had to be in the enlisted reserve corps.
Eventually, he was assigned to the 9th Cavalry, one of 2 black cavalries known as the Buffalo Soldiers. The all-African-American groups started during the Civil War. Their service, though, lasted until 1948, when President Harry S. Truman integrated the military. And by the early 1950s, they were gone.
And we didn't know a thing about no Buffalo Soldiers in the Army.
Okay.
We never heard it.
Mr. Lewis may be the last living Buffalo Soldier around. He remembers his duties well.
Each man was assigned a horse, and you had to take the horse. When you're ready to go out, you ride the horse, bring him in, wash him down, clean him up, feed him, then you go eat.
Ralph Barnett is putting together a documentary about the Buffalo Soldiers.
In spite of the huge swath of American history that they cover and their importance in American history, the story has never really been told.
Mr. Lewis is going to be a big part of that film.
They don't give it the publicity it needs.
Believe it or not, Mr. Lewis is not the only Buffalo Soldier still alive to tell his story. 98-year-old John W. Pooler Sr. from right up the road in Dublin, Georgia, was a sergeant with the 92nd Infantry, the only African-American unit to see combat in Europe during World War II. Mr. Pooler stood in the face of conflict with courage, dignity, and pride. We salute you, sir. Thank you for your service, sacrifice, and for paving the way for others to follow. Coming up next, a Savannah pastor and World War II veteran is being recognized for his service halfway across the globe. You're watching WSAV's Black History Journey. Welcome back. Last fall, the Netherlands began commemorating 75 years of liberation from Nazi repression, a celebration that will continue well into this year. One Savannah man was there as events kicked off. In fact, he was among the soldiers who fought to liberate the country. His name is Pastor Matthew Southall Brown. We had a chance to speak with him before taking the trip he called one of the most memorable moments of his life. Here's a look back. The last time we sat down with Reverend Matthew Southall Brown Sr., he told us the story of his military service.
The military back then was strictly segregated. I went in at 17, maybe 17 and a half, and quartermaster, they called it, stacking gasoline, washing pots and pans, cleaning latrines.
Pastor Brown, a member of the Greatest Generation, was a trailblazer on the battlefield, among the first African-American soldiers to fight in World War II.
I was with the group 2,221 African-American soldiers. They selected and scattered us throughout the infantry.
The year was 1943. He was serving in Europe when the Battle of the Bulge broke out.
So we went up there and we fought gallantly. I saw a lot of heroic things done by African-American soldiers that never got reported.
Now at 97, Brown is on his way back to Europe, to the Netherlands, to celebrate 75 years of peace and liberation from German attacks. He's been invited to commemorate and memorialize 32 black volunteer infantrymen buried in the American Cemetery at Margareton. He'll also talk about his own experiences.
The people in the Netherlands sent me a temporary itinerary. I'm to meet the King and the Queen. I'm to meet people of the American Embassy. And I'm to talk to maybe upward of 100 young people. I pinched myself when it became apparent that I was going. You know, I wanted to be sure I wasn't dreaming.
Brown says he never imagined returning to Europe, and while he can't turn back the hands of time, he can move forward to make a difference.
This country, America, did not try at the beginning of black presence in America. But your country and my country and his country is trying very, very hard now to change that image. And I'm helping them. I'm assisting them because I want it changed too.
Pastor Brown did make that trip to the Netherlands, and he says he was treated like royalty. Here's a picture of him shaking hands with the King and Queen of Belgium and the Netherlands. Pastor Brown was one of 7 World War II veterans honored for their bravery in the European theater, also known as the Second European War. He's now 98 years old, or as he likes to say, just 2 years shy of his 100th birthday. On now to the story of a different kind of hero, a man whose love for his community and children has impacted generations. We take a look at the life of Lucius Beaulevet, a coach and community leader who had a heart of gold and the will to make a difference. There are leaders and there are legends. Lucius Beaulevet was both.
Well, Beaulevet was like a surrogate father. He was a big part of my upbringing.
Cyrus Hunter and Reggie Tyndall played Little League sports for Levet.
I met Bo when I was 8 years old, and he became a football, basketball, and baseball coach. And under Bo's leadership, you know, I have received over 100 trophies.
They practiced on this very park in the Cloverdale community on Savannah's west side. On any given day, they say, there were upwards of 100 kids. It was their field of dreams, a place that led to bigger opportunities.
Playing with Bo, good wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough. You had to be the best. So, you know, we took pride in what we did.
They credit Levet with molding them into the men they are today. Hunter has spent the past 30 years following in his footsteps.
Right now I'm coaching at Benedictine Military School. I had a nonprofit youth program. I've helped kids and stay out of trouble. I mean, he just inspired me to give back.
Tyndall went from being one of the most decorated athletes in the city to a career at Gulfstream.
The things that I learned from Bo, I used in my everyday life. I actually became the first African-American senior master craftsman ever at Gulfstream.
To the kids in this community, like Hunter and Tyndall, Levet was larger than life. At 6'4", he was a force of nature. But that's not the only reason they looked up to him. As commanding as his presence, his compassion was more powerful.
He would just stop everything and just take that opportunity to talk to young people, to talk to them, to make sure that they understood, hey, are you getting a grade? Are you doing well in school? Make sure the next time I see you, you bring me a copy of your report card.
To Horace Magwood, who met Levet as an adult officiating, he was a mentor and friend.
Football opened so many doors for me and for the guys who came along with me. Because of the things that he taught us and the things that he instilled within us, we were able to call playoff games, we were able to call a championship game at the old Georgia Dome, we were able to meet legendary coaches. Those doors could not have been opened without someone like Beaulevet taking us under his wing.
But to his daughter, Superintendent Dr. Ann Levet, and her siblings, he was everything.
And I am definitely a daddy's girl. I will say that just to anyone. You want that time, but we had to share him with other people, and I was not always happy about that. As I got older, I recognized that many of the kids, in a sense, needed him more than I did. He certainly, you know, lived with us and taught us lessons, and some of the kids did not have that.
Dr. Levet still marvels at her father's accomplishments.
I remember the year he had like 19 teams. 19, I'm thinking, that's crazy.
After a standout athletic career at Beach High School, Levet joined the Savannah Police Department in 1963 and founded an organization that would impact generations to come, the Policemen's Athletic League of Savannah, or PALS. In 1968, his basketball team won their first national championship in Newark, New Jersey. They would subsequently bring home 18 more in the span of 23 years. In 1985, Levette left the police department to travel the world as the equipment manager and referee with the Harlem Globetrotters. Between tours, he came home to counsel coaches and former players.
No telling what a lot of us would have been doing if we didn't have that reinforcement outside of our home. And he gave us all of that reinforcement. He took us to other cities and other places to show us that it's another life outside of Savannah, Georgia.
In 1996, Bo Levette was inducted into the A.E. Beach High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Later, he was recognized for his career and impact on youth by the Georgia General Assembly. He was also inducted into the Greater Savannah Athletic Hall of Fame. Today, a marker bearing his name stands on the same grounds where he cultivated dreams and taught children to become champions on and off the field. Bo Levette passed away in 2018. He was 83 years old. His Hall of Fame citation reads, "His record and reputation show he succeeded in his dream of building boys rather than repairing men." When we come back, an old art form has taken on new life. Find out how one church continues the centuries-old tradition of call and response. You're watching WSAV's Black History Journey. Welcome back. Music has played a major role in African American churches for more than a century. Now a group in Augusta has found a way to keep the past alive. Dee Griffin explains.
Go preach my gospel, said the Lord. Bid the whole earth my grace receive. Go preach my
Inside Greater Mount Canaan Missionary Baptist Church, an old art form has taken on new life.
Out of each one of those hymns that we do, it has a message.
The Disciples of Praise do what's called raising hymns. It's a form of song known as call and response that dates back to slavery.
Back in the slavery time, quite naturally, they didn't want them to know how to read, so they couldn't read. But as it went older and older, you may have had the preacher or some designated one that, would read it, or they may not then have but one book.
The hymns fall into categories of standard, common, metered, and long, varying by the length of the notes.
I like, Father, I stretch my hands to thee, no other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, or whither shall I go? What did thine only Son endure before I drew my breath? That's the one I love.
Join in a song of sweet accord, and thus around the throne.
If God take his hand from me, then where will I go? Because he's the reason why I live. He's the reason why I'm here.
As instruments have increased in popularity during services, this form of music has seen a significant decrease in many churches, but it's been just the right beat to keep this group in harmony.
What's so unique about it is a bunch of men from different backgrounds, from different churches come together and be able to coexist. And that was one of the things that was so unique about our group.
What's the matter with me? What's the matter with me?
Through song, they're using their voices to raise more than just hymns.
We have an anniversary, and we raised this money for our scholarship people. It comes in from various churches.
While raising hymns has become a dying art, this group is using it to keep history alive.
If it dies, then they'll never know about their history. And if you don't know where you came from, then you don't know pretty much where you're going. So everybody needs to know about their history.
For Hidden History, I'm Dee Griffin.
No truer words have ever been spoken. We'll be right back. We close today with a tribute to a legal leader and freedom fighter gone too soon. Savannah Alderman, civil rights attorney and NAACP counsel Robert Robbie Robinson was in the prime of his life and career when on December 18, 1989, he was tragically killed when a mail bomb exploded in his Abercorn Street office. The assailant, Walter Leroy Moody, was later convicted and sentenced to death for another crime. He was executed 2 years ago. Robinson's life and work is now being remembered by the University of Georgia. He graduated law school there in 1974. To honor his legacy, the School of Law has established the Robinson Scholars Program for underrepresented student populations with ties to Georgia and a passion for public interest law. At the beginning of this academic year, the law school welcomed its inaugural class of Robinson Scholars. This weekend, they will present a gift to Robinson's widow and family during a special ceremony. Thank you for joining us for WSAV's Black History Journey. We hope you enjoyed it. To learn more, go to our website, wsav.com/blackhistory. I'm Kim Gusby. Have a great day.